Hello and welcome. My name is Michelle with Phoenix Flow Art. If you're new to my channel, please like, subscribe, and share. And if you're not new to my channel, thank you for coming back and watching again. I've had a lot going on in 2023, so I haven't had the opportunity to provide as much content as I would have liked. So I'm going back to putting out content weekly. Just life and setting up a studio inside my house and just everything that was going on. I just haven't been able to dedicate it myself to putting out weekly videos. So I'm going back to putting out weekly videos. So thank you for hanging in there while I, get over this hump. So last week I put out a video on cyanotype. It was part 1. It was how to create a cyanotype print, tone that print. And this week, I'm showing you how to embellish that print to make that into artwork. So I chose these two brown prints to go ahead and start embellishing. So right now I'm using Pebio's gilding paste. It comes in a tube. It's called Mixtion Relief. And basically it is paste for different types of leaf. Gold leaf, copper leaf, things of that nature. So I am outlining the leaves now. And then after the paste dries, then I will put the leaf on it. It goes on white and the line is as thick as you want it to be, but it goes on white. And when it's ready for the leaf or foil, it will be a clear color. So again, I'm outlining these cyanotype leaves, and then once they dries and turns clear, I'll put leaf on or foil. Usually I would use the sheets, but in this case, I'm going to use the leaf flakes, which is a whole lot messier. And it's because the leaf flakes, they were a combination of gold, copper, they had some red foil in it as well as green, which I thought was really, really pretty. So whenever you're using any type of leaf, you'll probably want to use some sort of paper or something underneath to protect your surface, number 1. 2, so you can gather the leaf up, and the leaf that you haven't used, you can put back in the container. Now these leaves have stems, but I'm not going to do the stems now because I'm going to do the stems in a solid gold. So if I put the paste in now, it will all be the same color. So I'm just doing the leaf itself. Creating cyanotypes is an addictive process, but it's fun. And like I said, you can use it in all types of artwork after the fact. You just need to do it on wet strip paper. And this paper that I'm using is 140 pound watercolor. So like I said, once it's dry, you can't even tell it's on there. It becomes a clear. And as you can tell, this video is sped up just about the entire video so I can get everything in. If you have any questions about the process or you have any tips, please leave them in the description below. Once the leaf is on there, brush off all the excess because you don't want any excess floating around in your resin because eventually these will get resined. Now I could have just left, after I outlined the leaves, I could have left them with the white inside, but but I decided to make them colorful. So here they are. Both of them are outlined. So I'm going to go in with watercolor and just drop color into the leaves just to make them colorful, because that's a brown background. And this took a little bit of time just because I didn't know what direction I really wanted to go. And no, it's not realistic. I just put colors I thought would look nice together. So I have blues, I have purples, yellows, reds, all in there. I just wanted it very colorful. And what I did was just wet the entire surface and then just start adding color just to see how they would mesh or blend together. And I found once I got the water dirty with the red, I used that as my, instead of getting clean water to lay down first, I used that because it just added, I think, some character. And it's always hard when you start off with a white surface. If you start off with color, it just seems easier, at least to me. And it's a nice red wash. And there is no wrong way or right way to do this. It's just whatever you like. I could have went ahead and put veins on the leaves, so try to make it a lot more realistic, but that's not what I was going for. I wanted it more organic as far as how the colors came together. And this is a great process just to experiment and try things. And a good thing with watercolor is, if you don't like it, just a lot of times you can just go ahead and let it dry and use clear water to lighten it. Because whatever the color is when it dries, it's going to be lighter anyway. So just play with and experiment with it. And if you don't have watercolor, I could have come in here with acrylic paint and done the same thing. once I got the leaves where I thought I wanted them to be as far as the color was concerned, then I went ahead and added the stems. And for the stems, I used Pebio's Mirror Effects in gold, so they were solid. And I will list what I used in this video in the description below. Now I'll let this sit for an hour or two because I need to make sure it was fully dry. But if you don't want to wait, you can use a hair dryer. And as you can see how light the watercolor dried. The mirror effects does not make a mess like the gold leaf or this copper leaf. So I decided to mount these two pieces of watercolor on a 5x5 wood cradle board. And I'm using Yes Paste. Yes Paste is a thick paste, but when you're dealing with watercolor, and because you need it to really adhere, you need something thick. So I'm using what's called Yes Paste. Smooth that all over the surface and then mount my watercolor paper on top of it and then let it sit and dry. I'll let that dry overnight. I use parchment paper on the piece, and then I use a roller to make sure I get all the air bubbles and it has good contact to the surface, which is going to be important. If it doesn't have contact everywhere, when you use resin on top of it, it will bubble. So you need to make sure the paste is dry, it has good contact. And I also had to take that outside to the garage as well, and I sprayed it with a sealer before I put resin on it, because again, it is a paper, it is watercolor, it's going to warp and move around if you do not. Basically, the resin will soak into the paper and create a mess. and I sprayed it with the Krylon spray. So to ensure I have good contact, I weighted it down, like I said, overnight. Put a board, put some heavy gallons of paint and gack on top of them, and let that sit overnight. Next morning, I took it up and I cut all of the excess off of the sides with an X-Acto knife. The sharper the X-Acto knife, the cleaner the edge will be. And it's thick, going through the paper, going through the glue, in some areas going through the foil. So you have to really press down and have a fresh knife or a very sharpened knife, a new blade. So next I will resin them. Now I created a dam around my edges because I wanted my resin to be thick. There's some other pieces that I'm going to resin also there. I tend to resin multiple pieces at a time in case there's any extra. So when you create a dam like this, you're going to have a lip on the edge, which you're going to have to sand off. And you're probably going to get bubbles in that lip, which is perfectly fine because you're going to sand it off. Wherever the resin hits the tape, it may create a bubble. But that's no big deal. We're going to fix that after the fact. So the next day it was dry. So I remove the tape. And you can see the edge. You can see the lip that you're going to have to sand off. But overall, they look good. So I'm expecting them, looking for other bubbles or other areas that might need to be sanded. So once it's sanded, it's gonna look satin like this. I use an orbital sander, which is wonderful. And make sure you get all the dust off, and then I pour a second coat of resin on them. And again, make sure you get rid of that lip. If not, the resin will roll back and you won't have a level surface. It will create an issue. I pushed the resin over the edge so that the sides get resined also, just a little bit. And next, you'll see the final product, and you'll also see a couple of other things that I've created with this process. So again, if you have any questions, please leave them in the description below or the comments below, and I will respond. Thank you for watching. I know this was a long video, but I hope you enjoyed part 1 and part 2 of this video. Phoenix Flow Art, creating is what we do.